to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who has built his business around thoughtful process, strong relationships, and a deep respect for the client experience. He spent over a decade refining how loans move from first conversation to closing while balancing scale, autonomy, and family life. So, Chris Siegfried, I want to welcome you to the Lowdown.
Hey, thanks, Connor, for having me. I appreciate it. Appreciate the
Yeah,
opportunity.
absolutely. Absolutely, man. A little behind the scenes for anyone watching. This is kind of a miracle that we're pulling this off today. So we had a little technical difficulty. So, excited that we were able to power through that and have this conversation. But Chris, it's been good getting to know you, and something that I just to kind of get things started. You started producing around 2020. You've worked through kind of several different environments since then. And I'm just curious, like, what do you think about those early years? What did those early years teach you that sort of shapes how you work today?
Yeah. Well, first off, I started off as a junior loan officer assistant, and I learned from what's a great mentor now and how he ran his business, how he communicated, and how he really focused on educating the buyer, right? And really knowing the math. I thought that was really important at the time. And that's kind of something that I've carried through over the years, over a decade. At the beginning, it was really important to me, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, to build as many relationships as possible, right? Typically, we think referral partners, right? Realtors, advisors, accountants, attorneys, etc. For me, it was mostly just building relationships with realtors and letting people know what I was doing. That carried over year. And no matter what, right, when you get your opportunity, whether it's the first year in the game or 10 years later, you have to do a good job. I think that goes without saying because you may only get one shot, and some people have a one strike and you're out type of mentality. So building relationships was important. And then once you actually got the opportunity, you had to kill it.
Yeah. So how do you, because there is a compound effect to just making sure everyone in your sphere of influence knows exactly what you do. But how are you communicating that? Like, how do you get the word out without feeling like, a pest or a nuisance? Or do you even care if you come across that way?
No, I do. I try not to be super salesy. I try to be as genuine as possible. Little bit of backstory for me, which is nuanced and unique. When I started about a year into my career, I went on to the television show The Bachelorette, and that was pretty unique. And then I actually won, and we got married. Girl, The Bachelorette. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I told you that, and we have three kids
You did not
now.
tell me this.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we've got three kids, and at the beginning when I was starting out my career, right, I would never lead with that. I would never tell people right out of the gates, but I would be heavy on social media and LinkedIn and trying to email and connect and show my face and hope that they would recognize some right, and then hope that they would want to take a meeting, and then from there just build off of that rapport and then build a relationship. But yes, certainly at the beginning I had a little bit of a cheat code where I may have been a little bit more recognizable from the show. It was around the same time as I was really beginning my career, and then from there you still have to do a good job, but
Yeah, I mean, if we could all follow that same path through our
yeah, that's
careers,
correct. Well,
it's
I
a little
want to harp on
unconventional,
that.
but well, that's great though. I mean, hey, you had it, you used it, it works, right? So now you've spent a lot of your career kind of working alongside a lot of the same people. You mentioned your mentor, and that's a long-term relationship. How has that consistency influenced the way that you kind of view and trust and collaboration in the business?
I think it's important to find people that you trust and that you want to work alongside with. Yes, I've been working alongside my best friend for 14 years. He got me into the business. He got into the business 2 years prior to me. So it's always been nice to have someone around who you can, spitball ideas off of, see how they're growing, right? You can share how you're growing, and it just creates more of a collaborative kind of environment and community. So I've been fortunate to be around the same people for almost all my career. I did start at a mortgage bank company. That company got acquired by just a mortgage company, and we had almost like 100% retention. So we really stuck together. There was 300 plus people really stuck together. I took a small hiatus, my best friend and I, and then our team took a small hiatus and went somewhere else. But then we came back to the same group uh, in 2024.
Very
So
cool, man.
we've really been together for a while.
Yeah, and I know like along the way, just in kind of getting to know you and talking kind of leading up to this, there have been different tweaks here and there to the process and different things that you've tried. You mentioned like a very intentional pre-approval handoff process that removes some of the guesswork for both you and your clients and agents. What part of that process do you believe has had the biggest impact on like confidence and clarity for all those involved?
Yeah, we have a really extensive early stages pre-approval process. And I think that hiring the right people, right, and having confidence in those people, we put a lot of trust in our pre-approval team and ourselves to make sure that when we actually send out approvals, that they're valid, right? And that the client, the buyer can actually make offers with confidence. The big thing I preach is that you have close to zero hesitation before you write an offer. So you know what you're getting before you sign up, right? And then once you get into contracts, it's just a part of the process now. All right, you wanted plan A yesterday. Now you do still want plan A, right? You've already written your contract. So the goal really in our process is to make sure that they have no hesitancy going into the offer. And that starts at the beginning in the upfront conversation with the client, making sure you get all the stuff that we all do, right? But make sure you get all the documentation, actually get it reviewed, right? Have it underwritten so that you can then convey with certainty, like, hey, you are approved, right? You can get a loan. Now let's go find a house.
Yeah. So how has like following that philosophy changed the business for you? Did you do it differently in the past and then evolve into this, or is this how sort of it's always been?
It's certainly built up over time, right? I think with loan officers, it's a business where you feel like you have to be 100%, right? You certainly feel like there isn't any grace. Like if you mess up, you might lose a relationship or but I think over time and just with confidence and repetition and doing more loans, you kind of can give yourself a little bit more grace. The process has definitely evolved over the years from me doing my own loans right at the beginning, which I think is really important from start to finish, learning how to calculate income, like look at ratios, go through guidelines, have a pretty good understanding of guidelines. Maybe not 900 products, but have a good understanding of guidelines, right? And then as you can build and grow, there's only one way to scale, and that's to bring in other people that you can have confidence in that are also good at those jobs and tasks that you do at the beginning.
Yeah. So would you say you've sort of built a team to where now everyone knows what they're doing and everyone has kind of their very clear function within the process. And so in order to scale, it's really just about hiring more people to do the same job so that you can take on more, like intake more capacity, or how's the team built for growth right now?
Yeah, everyone on the team has defined roles. So, when a loan comes in and you hand it to a production assistant, they know exactly what they're to do, right? When it gets to the processor, they know exactly what they're to do. If it's on the pre approval team, they know what to do. So, it's really important that everyone has defined roles, certainly something that you're constantly working on improving, evolving, removing, right? Just to make things more efficient. So, yes, to answer your question, to continue to grow, we can plug people in or find new hires to fit certain roles to make sure that the whole system's not getting bogged down, right? When you need to grow.
Yeah, I mean, the mortgage industry is really interesting, right? Because a lot of originators feel like they're entrepreneurs. They kind of feel like they're running their own business, yet they're working for a company, and there's
Yeah.
intrapreneurship. And so some folks that I talk to, they really struggle with like, okay, how do I design my process or my team or the business to be able to be built for growth? Like, how did you arrive at the knowledge of how to construct the team this way? Who were some of your influences or the resources that you used to kind of know what to do?
That's a good question. I think that you have to have a company with experience, people with experience, right? Entrepreneurs, right? That you said, and even entrepreneurs. There are people that I still work with today that had their own companies, built them up, and sold them off to mortgage companies. Came over and worked for the company they sold to, right? So they had that real taste of entrepreneurship in mortgage. I think it's important to find those people at companies, right? So as people are looking at different companies, like find out if there's experience there, if there's big producers. You don't just need to follow a big producer's footsteps, right? But like maybe someone who has a model that you like, right? I mean, just because someone does a whole bunch of volume doesn't mean it's going to be the way you should be doing it. So it's important to talk to all the producers, the bigger producers, because they've figured something out as you're trying to build and grow whatever it is your goals are. If it is to build a big team, to do $100 million in production plus, right? Whatever it is. I've always had people to pick information from throughout their careers as top producers.
Yeah. So I'm just curious in your experience and if there's any advice you can give. I mean, for someone who would like to start having those conversations, how do you recommend they engage those producers? What's the right way to start that conversation with someone?
I think it's important. So if you're new in the business, right? If you're trying to be brand new, uh, yeah, how do you find someone who's willing to give up some of their time, right? You just have to ask. You just have to be willing to ask. And if they're not interested, they're going to say no, right? But if they're coming from a place of giving back, right, then hopefully they'll say yes. How do you find them? I don't know how a person finds a top producer outside of not, if you're not in the industry. It's usually by referral, right? As an example, I talked to someone 2 weeks ago who wants to get into the business. How did they find me? They found another bigger producer in Southern Oregon, and it just so happens that this guy wants to start in the loan business. He's moving to the Portland metro area. So I was in communicate. I know my friend down in Southern Oregon who's a producer, right? He calls me and says, "Hey, you should interview this guy." And that guy doesn't know anyone other than that person. So like, I don't know. How do you find people if you're starting out?
Well, and even if you're with you've started and you're stuck and you feel like, okay, hey, I'm doing 4 or 5 loans a month. I want to get
Yeah.
into I want to be a 75, $100 million producer. Like, I mean, the company definitely has the leaderboards, right? But like, I just didn't know if you had any advice on like rules for engagement. Is it really just as simple as like reach out and say, hey, can I pick your brain? And it's either a yes
Yes.
or a no. Okay.
Yes, I think if you are already a loan officer, right, and you have some production under your belt, reaching out, call, right? A lot of people may not get an email or they might just disregard an email as spam, but just call someone and say, "Hey, Connor, I've seen that you've done a really good job with your business. You seem to be successful. I'd love to, can I take you to dinner? Can I come by your office? Can I pay you $500 just to come sit with you and learn?" Right? I've heard that from coaches over the years. I've heard that from other top producers. Well, they'll literally call up and say, "Hey, can we just come and shadow you for a week?" Right. One of my best friend who runs our Snohomish office, he has people all up and down the West Coast who will literally just call him and say, "Hey, can I just come shadow?" And if you can put yourself in, right, if I'm reaching out to Connor and say, "Hey, you're doing great production. I would like to do what you do someday. Can I just come listen?" Go to that person, right? Don't make the person come to you. You're asking for their time, right? And their time is valuable. So go to them and just be around them.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that perspective because I know a lot of people who listen to the show, they're trying to figure that out and it's just kind of knowing how to get to that conversation is important. So I appreciate you sharing. Did you have more on that? I'm sorry, I felt like I maybe
I'd
cut you
say,
off.
well, yeah. And I'd say whether it's internally at your company or if it's externally, right? If it's a competitor, is it really a competitor, right? Are there really not enough loans to go around, right? It's kind of like with real estate. Are you really competing with each other or are you really just working your own sphere of influence, right? So I wouldn't be shy to say, "Hey, reach out to company XYZ in Texas, right? Or just someone you admire or that's industry peer, whether they're producing X you or on the same level."
Yeah. Well, sorry, got a little sidetracked there. That was a little journey off to the
Nah, that's all
side.
right. Hey, that's
But
okay.
bringing it back bringing it back to like tactically, things have evolved within the systems and the processes. Like what would you say is one adjustment that you've made that have kind of noticeably made things smoother?
Relinquishing control on the upfront approval process, right? I vet clients. I have I'll have the numbers conversation to the end with them. I got away from collecting documentation, right? Reviewing their income all in, reviewing their assets and credit. Like I'll look at it from a high level, but I have a lot of trust in our team, right, to review it as well and get it through underwriting so that when I see it, it's like, okay, yep, this is exactly what I do. Okay, I can now turn this over to a client and make sure that they're comfortable with what we've approved them for. So, kind of handing over, delegating that upfront process flow so that I can work on bringing in more business, right? Building more relationships, whether it's in the community or with the client as a whole to keep the lights on.
It's great, man. And what's kind of struck me in some of our conversations is you're successful, right? And you're doing a great job on the production
Thank you.
standpoint. Anybody who ran the numbers would definitely agree with that. But even just talking with you, like you've expressed a need for, or you've identified, a need for more diversification within the referral relationships and diversification within your business. Where did that realization come from, and how is that changing the way you're approaching things now?
Yeah, we talked the other day, right? I'm a heavily realtor based loan officer, right? Most of my referrals are coming from realtors and then past clients at this point. I don't have a lot of diversity in all of the different pillars of accountants, advisors, lawyers, insurance, right? And that's something that I'm constantly trying to figure out. Like, are those pillars that I want to build? Yes, but organically, right? I do have relationships with advisors and accountants, but I want those to evolve over time as just more of an organic, like, oh, yeah, my client should be working with Chris, right? I'm not going out and talking to 10 accountants a week and taking them all to coffee. I didn't build my book of business that way with kind of like the core mindset, right? 100 calls, 20 lunches, 10 coffees. I haven't built my book of business and it just doesn't work for me that way. It's just been more of an organic growth of building relationships, being a support mechanism for the people that refer to me
Yeah.
and then just having and then they can trust that we do a good job every time.
So are you more of a, who should I know that kind of question asker and trying to get, every next conversation be a referral from someone else? Or it doesn't sound like you do much cold prospecting. Am I
No,
understanding you right?
yeah, correct. I don't do much cold prospecting. It's for example, my friend is a lawyer, right? And he now says, "Hey, have you talked with so and so who I work with in accounting?" And I'm like, "No, I'd love an introduction," right? So I'm not afraid to ask for that introduction, working Connor's right sphere or working this person's sphere just as much. And it's a warmer introduction. There are books on that of what do you call it? It's kind of I can't remember the name of it right now, but yeah, I think there are ways to utilize other people's fears just as much as your own that you've grown. And you have to be willing to ask.
That's the key right there, right?
Yeah, yeah, you've got to ask.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I asked you the question, just for our listeners. There's more than one way to prospect, but at the end of the day, you always have to ask for the business, and you might find that working through others is a more effective way for you, or you may say, hey, I'm just going to get the phone book and call through it. So to each their own, but at the end of the day, you got to ask for the business.
You got to ask. Here's something that hit me kind of yesterday in the right in the middle of the eyes. There's a team that I'll never work with, right? Realtor group I'll never work with. They've got their 3 loan officers on deck. They're all super successful loan officers. I know them, right? And so I kind of just backed off. I don't want to market to them anymore. I shared what states I'm licensed in, and I've gotten 3 referrals from that team.
Wow.
So, telling people where you work, right? Telling people where you can do loans, sharing that information, whether it's social or just in passing in conversation, um, I think can help people build relationships with teams that they may not ever have an opportunity with.
Yeah, has that become like another full-time job for the loan officers, just like the consistent marketing and getting that information out to the masses? Is that like something that dominates your week, or how much time do you spend on that?
Yes, I think the whole you have to be marketing whether you're, doing whatever works for you, ads, newspaper, online, social media content, newsletters, email blasts, database management. Like you have to be doing something. You have to be doing something because we're all just trying to buy brain cells for that next opportunity, right? Our clients buy what every 4 to 7 years. They're either going to sell or refinance, and those numbers may change, right, year over year a little bit. How are you going to be top of mind? And so you always have to be marketing. I would argue that even people who are 30 years into their career were marketing at the beginning, and now they're like, oh, I'm only referral based. It's like, well, you did something at the beginning to build that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even then, you're still marketing to those referrals to get the next referral. So there's always, I mean, it doesn't seem like it ever ends. You can always have the magnet on the fridge, you know.
Correct. Yeah, put your face on it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, kind of on that topic, so to speak, like, how are you choosing what gets your time throughout a week? Like, what are you prioritizing now at where you are in your career versus maybe what you did 10 years ago?
There is a handful of inbound, right, that I do take care of on a week to week basis. Um, I'm constantly working on time blocking, right? One thing that I've utilized over I started at the beginning of 25 and I will continue to do it for as long as possible. I give up my calendar to everybody. So I'm a big fan of that. And some people aren't, but I am. I'm a big fan of saying, hey, here's my calendar, find time that works for you. I block out my own times, right? Like you cannot schedule time with me after 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You just can't, right? You can't schedule time with me before 9, right? So you have to find in your calendar your own safe time. But I've been, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I've been a big advocate for just turning my calendar over to people. Oh, your question is, yeah, okay. So sometimes I would like to think that I time block and to work on content, right? To just sit down and make phone calls to my clients. But then you're just flipping through social media or you said something and I'm like, oh, that would be a great idea for a post later. And I'll just rip one out, right? And so it's a little bit of a combination of, yeah, I'll time block, but then kind of ad hoc.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said though, is that you'll carve out intentional like time where you're not available. And I think that's a really key call out because, early on in a loan officer's career, it seems like, just sort of ingrained in you to always be available, always answer, always, always, always you need to be on. And even, when you sell to that agent, hey, I'll answer your call anytime, and a pattern I see in the conversations I have here on the lowdown is that the originators that are producing at a high level, one of the key things that they did to get there, like one of the main like switches in their business was that they turned it off. They said, "Hey,
Mm,
no, I'm setting these boundaries. I'm saying you can't call me before 9 o'clock. I'm not available after 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays." And they started to put structure into their day that didn't allow for people to just sort of randomly interrupt or make requests of them and like dump work on them. And so I feel like there's definitely a pattern there.
yeah.
So I think it was worth a call out, but I love that you mentioned it.
It does take time. I won't be naive. Like I certainly am available. I am available. I just know now when someone says something, let's say a client says something's on fire, I just can be like, that's not a fire. Let's talk tomorrow, right? I don't need to talk to you at 7 o'clock at night or when my kids go to bed. I don't, maybe we can talk afterwards if it's urgent. You're making an offer and it's really important and there's a deadline, but you'll learn just over time. You do more loans by doing more loans, right? And then you get better and better at it, which is a weird saying, but it's true. You'll get better and better at recognizing when someone it's an urgent and important or it's not really. And then just saying like, hey, example, Sunday, right? Oh, we need to go make an offer. We're gonna go see the house right now. Oh, okay, great. So have you gone over? No, we haven't seen it yet. Okay. Well, why don't you go see it and then send me a message? I'm in the middle of a project with my son right now and I can't talk, right? People respect that.
Sure, yeah.
But I am certainly not. I still am pretty available. At the beginning of my career, I was always available. So yeah, when top producers say they're no longer available, I would cross check them because there is still some sort of, you may not be answering your phone, but you may be texting, right? Or you may never text, but you'll answer your phone. Or you're going to go
Right.
for a walk. I'm going to go get wood and then I'm going to be on the phone, right? Oh, why did it take you 30 minutes to get wood for the fire? Oh, right. So there is a little
Yeah.
bit of, I'm still available.
Yeah, well, I love that, and I guess the point was, it's the boundary, it's setting the expectation, it's
Yes,
communicating, that hey, my time is important too, and so but that's something that a lot of people have to learn, and it takes a while to learn that they can do that and not lose all the business. So,
agreed.
sort of as we wrap up here, Chris, I mean, I've asked you a lot of questions. Is there anything I haven't asked, or is there any advice that you'd want to share with any listeners that you find might be useful and helpful to them?
Oh, gosh.
The big question. So sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, making calls works, right? Calling people, scheduling appointments, it's like laws of numbers, right? Like the more calls, the more meetings you'll get, right? The more opportunities you'll get. If that's your model, right? Run with it, own it, and commit to it. If you're relationship based and you're not hammer out the phone calls 100 times, right, a day, then really be intentional on building relationships and genuine relationships with people. And I think try and find something that's unique to you that you offer, whether it's programs and loans and all of that stuff. I think most everyone has that, right? It's going to be pretty hard to differentiate yourself with programs, but like whether it's marketing or something personal, right? Like if you're really big into working out, like I've learned this over the last couple of years, but like if you're really big into running, right? Find groups that are runners or start having conversations with people that you want to work with about the things that you're passionate about, and then find alignment there. And then you're just building up a better relationship to then say, okay, hey, I'd love to actually work with you on the business side too. But it makes it more exciting, right?
Yeah, love that.
I built a pickleball court at the office. I like playing pickleball. So I'm using
Okay.
that as a marketing, it's outside right here. I'm using that as a marketing approach going forward, right? To build relationships and community. And then ultimately the ask is, hey, I'd like to work with you and help your business too.
Yeah, love that. It's creating the opportunity, like inviting people in. I think that's brilliant with the pickleball court, by the way. So,
Thanks. Thanks.
but
We will see.
yeah, well, hopefully nobody like turns an ankle or blows out a knee. But
That's why we have
pickleball.
insurance.
There you go, right? Well, Chris, I appreciate you being on the lowdown and just kind of sharing your story and your insights, and always here to be a resource for you, but be cheering you on from the sidelines, man. It was good to hear your story today.
Thanks, Connor. I appreciate the invite and appreciate the conversation.
You bet.